mama mangawa Namiz sharing facility deala tiyenne.
Okay, Mr. Naika.
If you need co-host, I can give you the co-host.
කාට හරි දීලා තියෙන එක හොඳයි power fail එකක් එහෙම આવොත් ඒක useful නේ.
Mama, I will make you the co-host, huh? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Naika නැත්තම් තව කාට හරි දෙන්න. මොකද අපිට නිතරම like යනවා.
හරි. Okay, Chandima.
Okay, may I start? Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome all to the webinar today. This is our 10th presentation. Today, our presenter is engineer Namiz Musafer. All of you may know about him very well because he was a member of our SCP Switch Asia SCP Policy Support Component Project. But let me introduce him in very few words. He has graduated from University of Peradeniya as an engineer, and he's a master degree holder and a member of Biogas Association of Sri Lanka, and also an expert in the energy sector. His topic today is the dilemma of sustainable consumption and biogas systems, perspective from Sri Lanka. Most valuable, timely topic actually. So without taking much time, I would like to invite Mr. Namiz, Engineer Namiz, to present your slides to the audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, the Joint Secretary Chandima. And thank you very much indeed to the Sustainable Consumption and Production Forum. And it's really a privilege to address you today as one of the members, as well as to the distinguished participants who are also experts in the sustainable consumption and production arena in Sri Lanka. Today, we are talking about the dilemma of sustainable consumption and biogas systems, taking from a Sri Lankan perspective, as Chandima correctly stated. Well, this type of sites have been quite common in Sri Lanka over the past. Even today, I travel from Colombo to Gampala, and in many places, we saw a lot of cubes like this, because there was a severe gas shortage in Sri Lanka. And then in the recent past, we also had certain issues with the fertilizer, the demand for the Maha season, people demonstrated, while some people really continued with their cultivation aspects. And here is a sort of a cartoon that we have seen very recently, where a president of a country is chasing the agriculture minister who is promoting organic agriculture. And Sri Lanka, today the situation is a little changed because we have seen a reverse in the ban on importation of chemical fertilizer or chemical agricultural inputs. However, this was the situation. There was a big hahoo in the country. And on the other hand, we have seen a lot of flood, landslide, droughts across the country. Even very recently, there were a couple of deaths in Sri Lanka. And certain times, these have taken place at the same time in different parts of the country. And in the Western province, for instance, within the province, we have experienced flood and drought at the same time, very recently. And then this is not quite unfamiliar to us, food security. Although many people do not talk about it, we still have the food issue, scarcity of food in Sri Lanka at certain periods. And garbage is another big issue we have, the waste, the garbage. And it's you and I who are responsible for generating the garbage, that is the residents, the occupants of the houses. And still we do not have a proper solution for this problem. And at the same time, post-harvest losses, for instance, in Sri Lanka, I think it was in the year 2018, the loss to the nation due to post-harvest was nearly 200 million US dollars from vegetables and fruits alone. And then on the right bottom, you see the price variation between the farmer's price in Jaffna and what is being sold in Colombo. What a big difference you see in the graph we see. And where has the price gone up? Is it because of the commissions of the intermediate people, the traders, or is it because of the losses? Probably it was a combination of these two, which also means that there had been post-harvest losses from the farm to the market, farm to the market. And then from the energy perspective, nearly 70% of Sri Lanka's people still rely on biomass for their cooking. And at the same time, if we take the household and the commercial sector, apart from the household and commercial sector, nearly 75% of the industrial energy demand, 75% of the industrial energy demand is met from biomass. And at the same time, nearly 65% of the commercial and household sector demand is met by biomass. And this slide is actually presented because for us to understand the severity, when it comes to the efficiency, cleanliness, and convenience, the solid fuels are quite hard, in the sense that the solid fuels are quite inefficient, inconvenient, and less cleaner. Liquid fuels are better. Gaseous fuels are much better. For instance, LP gas is much better. And then, of course, electricity is more or less the most versatile form of energy we use today. Of course, we have something called energy stacking. I just wanted to mention about this because of the major differences between solid fuels, liquid fuels, gaseous fuels. And we are going to talk something about a gaseous fuel today. And finally, from the introduction section, Sri Lanka as a country has committed to the global community through the nationally determined contribution way back in July this year, very recently, that overall, we will reduce something like nearly 15% of GHG reduction by the year 2030 within the period from 2021 to 2030 compared to the business as usual scenario. Whereas 25% from the power sector, which is nearly 50 million metric ton of greenhouse gases. Of course, we are experiencing the LPG shortage. We have energy security issues. We have the fertilizer issues. At the same time, the climate change is happening. Disasters are occurring. Environment degradation is taking place, and still we are interested about the sustainable development aspect. So with that, we would like to move on to our main area today, that's biogas systems, and then we will try to look into the sustainable consumption aspects, and then we will see as to how the dilemma really works out. The biogas discussion, we start with the waste generation, the per capita waste generation in the country. This slide is, I think, about 4 or 5 years old, but we can see per capita waste generation varies between 400 grams to 800 grams per person per day. Of course, there are variations between the provinces, variations between rural, urban, municipal areas and Colombo, but at the same time, approximately each person generates about 500 grams of waste per day in Sri Lanka. So that is quite substantial. We have about 21, 22 million people, and the total waste generation is something like 9,000 to 10,000 metric tons a day. And this is where we start with biogas. And when we take the domestic waste composition in Sri Lanka, nearly 62% of that is organic waste. 62% of the waste generated in Sri Lanka is organic. And as the members of the Sustainable Consumption and Production Forum, what are we going to do with waste? Because we are the people who advocate that we should reduce the waste. This is what we advocate, don't we? When it comes to the consumption or waste, use of natural resources or whatever, the best choice we advocate is avoid. Avoid which is not necessary. If we cannot avoid, we reduce. If we cannot do both, we reuse the resources. If we can do none of them, at least we try to recycle them. We can't do anything of this, at least recover the valuables, the precious metals or whatever from e-waste or whatever. And if none of this can happen, only we consider anything as a waste. So when it comes to the time or any other resource, we avoid, reduce, reuse, recycle, at least recover. And if nothing is possible, only we consider anything as a waste. So that is what we have been advocating as the Sustainable Consumption and Production Forum. And if nothing can happen, what are we going to do with waste? If there is waste, what are we going to do with them? We have a couple of technical options, thermal options, biological options, and landfilling options. Of course, the thermal conversion or thermal options are the most used ones when it comes to some form of use, and to some extent landfilling as well. We can go for just burning, incineration, or we can manage with gasification and pyrolysis, at least go for refuse or RDF. And today we are talking about biological conversion, that is the biogas systems. So composting and anaerobic digestion comes under the biological conversion route. The other route we have is landfilling. There can be landfills with the landfill gas recovery or without landfill gas recovery, just like open dumping yards. In an open dumping yard, we just dump the waste. There is no gas recovery. But if we have a sanitary landfill, for instance, well-engineered sanitary landfill, we may recover the gas that is being generated. We will discuss about it a little later. And we also will discuss about composting anaerobic digestion, mainly the differences between where we select anaerobic digestion and where we select composting when you have a lot of biological or organic waste. Because 60% of waste in Sri Lanka is organic. And what is biogas? The biogas is a mixture of gases. It's a mixture of gases, predominantly of methane and carbon dioxide with traces of water vapor, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, etc., which is generated under conditions where organic matter is fermented under oxygen-free conditions and some other conditions. So organic matter fermented under anaerobic conditions generate biogas. We have a lot of organic matter. We subject the organic matter under certain conditions, including oxygen-free condition, which generates biogas. So organic waste management or sort of biogas can be considered as an organic waste management technology. Of course, some time ago, biogas was considered mainly as an energy technology. In the recent past, it drew the attention as a waste management technology. In the very, very recent past, there had been a very high demand, particularly with the shortage of chemical fertilizer, for the biogas technology to be an organic fertilizer providing technology. So things have changed over the time, and we still do not know what the demand for biogas technology would be tomorrow or in the near future. Well, why do we consider as a renewable energy source when it comes to biogas? Because the methane content in it, when it is burned, which generates usually CO2 and H2O, just like any hydrocarbon. And then, like other hydrocarbons, it also generates heat. Heat is a source of energy, therefore biogas is a source of energy. And at the same time, when the waste material, the organic matter that is subjected to anaerobic digestion is provided through a sustainable source, continuous source, we'll say waste is generated over and over again. If that is the case, if it is supplied continuously in a sustainable manner, then the biogas technology can be considered as a sustainable energy technology or a renewable energy technology as well, as long as the supply is sustainable. And then biogas can also be compared with the similar gases we know of, liquefied petroleum gas, that is what we use to cook in the houses, the natural gas, compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas. And we also have heard about shale gas very recently because the USA has found new reserves in the recent past. And then we also have landfill gas. The landfill gas is not so common in Sri Lanka, but at the same time, landfill gas is also containing of methane in this list. Other than the LPG, all the other gases, natural gas, shale gas, and LFG, all are predominantly methane. LPG in Sri Lanka is predominantly propane and butane. Very recently, there had been certain hahu on the composition of LPG in Sri Lanka. With the gas storage, there had been certain changes we hear. Anyway, Sri Lanka used to have 60% of propane and 40% of butane is what I heard through a word of mouth rather than through the documents some time ago from a person who was working in the petroleum refinery. Anyway, biogas can be an alternative or a substitute for LPG and these gases. And then what are the energy applications of biogas? Biogas can be used in thermal application. Thermal refers to heat, illumination or lighting, And biogas also can be used for motive power, for engines. Wherever engines are concerned, we can use biogas as directly or as mix or whatever. And then biogas also can be used in power generation. Because wherever natural gas is used, LNG is used, CNG is used, biogas also may be able to use in a similar manner, because biogas also has mainly methane. Of course, we have only about 50 to 65%. If we want to use, just as in the case of natural gas, we may have to remove the carbon dioxide component. And sometimes we may have to remove the hydrogen sulfide component as well, because hydrogen sulfide is a corrosive gas. Of course, the biogas systems have agricultural applications as well. The digestate or the slurry that comes out of biogas systems can be used as a soil conditioner rich of carbon. Then it also can be used as a fertilizer with high levels of nutrients. The biogas slurry also is used as a pest repellent. It also contains a lot of hormones, friendly hormones for the plants. And then the digestate also helps in retention of moisture in the soil. Of course, the Lanka Biogas Association is expecting a series of awareness programs on agricultural applications of biogas systems in the near future. Of course, it had some programs with regard to the biogas systems technology over the recent past, where more than 200 people attended over the last in the month of September alone. So how does the biogas system work? The anaerobic fermentation takes place something similar to what is shown in the slide. At the center is the biogas digester or the biogas system, the biogas unit we call, and then on the left side, we sort of input the manure or the organic matter, the organic waste, the organic matter. It can also be purpose-grown organic matter. For instance, in certain countries, they grow certain plants to be input into the biogas system so that they can use the energy or the agricultural inputs. And then the biogas system provides energy because methane contains energy. And on the other hand, apart from methane, it also has carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. And then the digested matter within the biogas system, the bacteria will digest the organic matter, and the digested matter, after releasing the energy, will be sent out of the biogas system as the treated effluent. So treated effluent is what we use as organic fertilizer or organic inputs. Well, and this diagram shows something like how we use biogas system. On the left side, it is manure. At the center, it's the energy. On the right-hand side is the fertilizer. So this picture gives a little more details. The biogas systems reducing fuel wood and deforestation, because biogas can be used as a fuel, as a gas, substitute for LP gas. It gives fertilizer. It can produce electricity, reduce the drudgery of collecting fuel wood. It also generates employment and reducing cooking time because it's fast. And this gives a better picture as inputs to crop production, that is food and agriculture, then organic waste management, that is environment, and energy applications, that is power and energy, power generation, cooking, running vehicles, etc. Of course, biogas systems also can help in greenhouse gas emission reduction, because if we do not attend to the waste that is laid in the farms, they themselves can generate greenhouse gases or methane. So the biogas technology more or less capture those and make or put them into productive use. And biogas is a local technology or locally used technology, which helps in local money circulation as well. So those are the economic benefits. It provides a lot of employment and livelihood, and therefore they bring in economic benefits as well, social benefits as well, food and agriculture, power and energy, and solid waste, sort of environment and waste management. This slide, of course, is very, very important to you as professionals, as SAP forum members. This slide is very vital when it comes to the biogas technology or biogas systems. Because if you look at the bottom, why some people, companies, or whoever complain of ill-designed biogas systems, or saying that biogas systems are sort of having certain issues. Why is that? If we closely have a look at them, we should really consider the optimum conditions to run a biogas system. Of course, there are a lot of factors, a lot of variables. We can't optimize or maximize each and every aspect at the same time. We may not be able to do that. We can only optimize the situation. So this slide is important because unless we meet these adequately, sufficiently, we cannot expect good results. For us to expect good results, we should ensure that we input only the organic matter. We should put organic matter because we use bacteria. The bacteria interacts or eats only the organic matter. Therefore, we should input organic matter. The other hand, we should have anaerobic conditions inside the biogas system because it's anaerobic bacteria who are our friends. In order for the matter to digest, we should put the bacteria into it. In Sinhala, we call it muhun. Just like to make yogurt occur, we should input certain bacteria into them. Then only they will be transformed into curd and yogurt. Similarly, we should input the bacteria into the biogas system in order to ensure that organic matter is digested. Then because they are bacteria, we should ensure toxic-free environment. If we put chemicals into that, for instance, if we have a biogas system connected to a toilet, and then if we use detergents to kill the bacteria, then the bacteria will die or their speed will retard. Then the system may not work as a biogas system. So we should ensure that environment for bacteria is toxic free. And then we should ensure an optimal level of temperature as well. Something similar to us. If the temperature is very high or very cold, it's quite uncomfortable for us. For us to be quite productive, we should have a temperature something like 22 degrees, 24 degrees. For the bacteria, we may have to maintain certain temperatures according to the type of bacteria. Some bacteria work very well in the range of about 35 degrees. Some work in the range of about 55 degrees Celsius. Some at 70 degrees Celsius. Some at 15 degrees Celsius. Depending on the type of bacteria we want to use, we have to ensure the temperature inside the biogas system is comfortable to them. Then pH value of the material that is being degraded inside the biogas system, that is mainly the waste that we are talking about, the pH value has to be somewhere close to the neutral. Ideally, it should be 7, but in the range of about 6.8 to 7.2 pH value would be ideal. Then only the system can work very well because that's where the bacteria are comfortable. If it is too acidic or alkali, then it may be difficult for the bacteria to live. And then carbon to nitrogen ratio, something like 25:1. So this is something like the balanced diet for us. We say that we should have carbohydrate, protein, minerals, vitamins, etc. And that is what a balanced diet for us as humans. The balanced diet for bacteria, friendly bacteria in a biogas system, is carbon to nitrogen ratio. And then if in case our waste or the purpose grown crops do not have carbon to nitrogen ratio at the optimum level, we may have to make certain adjustments. It doesn't mean that having the ideal is not going to work, but it may not work efficiently. On the other hand, the moisture content, and this is where the ladies and gentlemen, the selection of whether we are going to a biogas system or composting can determine. One of the criteria for us to decide whether we are going for biogas or composting is the moisture content. Because biogas systems can accommodate higher levels of moisture, higher level of water. Something like 90% of moisture level is where the biogas systems work well. Whereas for composting, 60 to 70% of moisture may work. We have agriculture expert in our audience today. They may sort of give evidence to that effect. So one of the criteria where we select biogas system is the moisture content. Higher the moisture content, we may select that. And then the particle size. The particle size refers to the size of the organic matter that we are putting into the biogas system. For instance, if you put very large pieces, then it may take a longer time for the bacteria to react with them. So the speed will be low and we may not have an optimum outcome. It doesn't mean putting large pieces will not work, but it will reduce the efficiency. And then HRT refers to the hydraulic retention time. It is something like how long we should keep the organic matter inside the biogas system. We should not keep them for a very long time because we are wasting. We should not keep for a very shorter period, because if we keep for a shorter period, the bacteria will not digest them properly. Then half digested matter will be sent out of the biogas system. So we should very carefully design the hydraulic retention time, the organic matter, how long it stays inside the biogas system. It's something like our stomach. We take the organic food into the stomach, and the stomach will take specific time to digest the food and give us the energy required and put what is not necessary out of the body. And if we eat a lot, or sort of if we try to keep for a long time or a short time, the body health may not be that doing well. The loading also refers to the speed at which we input the material into the biogas system. It's something like the required food as a human. Are we going to eat at once per day, twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, something like that? So biogas systems also can be input continuously, couple of times a day, or as a batch or whatever, depending on the design we have. But whatever it is, the loading rate also matters. The hydraulic retention time also matters. So this slide is very, very important, because we should manage the biogas system in a manner where we come out with optimum conditions. And the reasons, when we analyze the reasons behind certain failures of biogas systems, are attributed to one or few of these. So as professionals, if you are careful about maintaining at the optimum level, designing properly, biogas systems would work extremely well. And there are a couple of biogas, many biogas types that is being used. Of course, we use different ways to classify, but technically we have mixed flow, plug flow, and batch reactors. And of course, when it comes to the names, we have fixed domes, floating drums, the batch, the nerd center ones. Mr. Leela Ratna would know very well about the batch one, the nerd one, the plug flow, the compact biogas system, that is the one that we can buy from the shop in Sri Lanka, from the supermarkets. The flexi bags, oil drums, the CSTR and USBs are generally used in industry, sort of institutions and industries. And of course, we have anaerobic lagoons as well. Of course, I have not seen any anaerobic lagoon, but I have heard from, particularly from Southern American continent. So finally, from biogas sector, we also can recover methane from landfills. Recover methane from landfills, some people call it landfill gas, which also is about 50% methane. Of course, we have to design from landfills, older landfills. We may have to have the biodegradable matter in them for a certain time. But mainly what we have to say is that we can use them. Of course, SDGs, if we talk about SDGs on biogas, moving on to the sustainable consumption aspects, there are a couple of SDGs that are very relevant to the discussion we talk about today. Zero hunger is mainly from food. SDG 7 is clean energy. Then sustainable cities and communities, also from waste management aspect. Responsible consumption and production is on sustainable consumption. And all of these also contribute towards climate change, the 13th SDG. Of course, we have a couple of targets under SDG 12, mainly implementing the 10-year framework, halving the food waste, per capita food waste, per person food waste, reducing waste generation, and the companies adopting good practices and good reporting systems, public procurement, making them sustainable green procurements, then enhancing the understanding and the good lifestyle cycles, very sustainable life cycles, and removing the market distortions while discouraging wasteful consumption. Of course, when it comes to sustainable consumption, many things matter, particularly the governance, the leadership, the management, or the policy aspects. Then intellectual capital, the cognitive aspects of the people, the knowledge of the people, natural capital, that is the nature, the environmental aspect, the social capital, the people, the communities, and the welfare, well-being of the people, and resource efficiency, particularly coming from the technological aspects, reducing the inputs, enhancing or increasing the outputs, so that we will use less resources. Many things are interlinked. And then when it comes to sustainable consumption strategies, of course, there can be many ways of talking about strategies, but predominantly available strategies include the eco-efficiency, sufficiency, and decommodification. Eco-efficiency, as you and I generally know, targets at commodities, reducing the environmental impact from extensive resource use. We try to reduce them, considering the entire life cycle, and also considering Earth's carrying capacity. So considering all those, we have to ensure that we produce the goods and services or the commodities that satisfies the needs of the people, enhancing the quality of life of the people, and the commodities are delivered at competitive prices. That is the eco-efficiency strategy. When it comes to sufficiency strategy, it generally targets the people, where the people are encouraged to consume the right quantity just necessary for their survival or their satisfaction. So that is sufficient for optimal health, well-being, and happiness. Something like we eat for hunger, not for greed. We eat because we want to enjoy, of course, but not for greed. And decommodification mainly talks about or targets about the markets or institutions. The commodity, more or less, rather than producing more and more commodities, rather than promoting consumerism, we try to get away, we try to disconnect with the commodification of the goods and services. So those are some of the strategies available, but at the same time, they are complement to each other. Now, one other good example, classic examples come from Sweden, where the government of Sweden has developed a strategy for sustainable consumption aspects. Now, Sweden, as we know, is within the first 3 when it comes to the Sustainable Development Index in the world. They have been within the first 3 or first 5 from the year 2016 onward, if I'm not wrong. So they have emphasized on increasing knowledge and deepening cooperation. Deepening cooperation in the sense getting the cooperation from all concerned. Then encouraging sustainable ways of consuming, resource use streamlining. Then companies' efforts on sustainability, improving information on sustainability efforts, reducing or phasing out harmful chemicals, time-bound phasing out plan, and importantly, improving the security of the consumers, consumer security. Right, and when it comes to the sustainable consumption tools, about which you and I are quite familiar with, we of course need the commitment and participation of all these 3 parties: individuals, that is you and I, the businesses from whom we buy the goods and services, and the government, who will give the policies and regulations and the legal framework. So we have information and awareness tools, regulatory, economic, and behavioral tools. Discussing a bit about them, regulatory tools, sort of something like the rules and regulations, are mainly 2 forms: injunctions, or sort of barring, prohibiting, something like introducing bans, and manufacturers are made mandatory to meet product standards. Then introducing something like polluter pays or extended producer responsibilities, imposing targets and limits. Those are the injunctions. And we also can have green public procurements and socially responsible investments when it comes to investments. For instance, not investing on coal. Now, Sri Lankan government has decided on that, not to start anything on coal. So only the socially responsible investments will be encouraged in the future. It can be cleaner technologies or renewable technologies, for instance. But what are the effects on biogas? When these comes, the waste will be reduced. So the biogas production potential can be reduced. Then when it comes to economic tools, of course, you know about taxes and charges, subsidies and incentives. We can have loans, for instance, e-friendly loans, And bonus and I don't know how it's pronounced, but bonus is something like encouragement, and malus is something like punishments. So in environment friendly aspects, products and services are given certain bonuses, but environment polluting, for instance, high carbon emitting production is penalized. So those are some of the economic tools. And then trading refers to something like CDM or carbon trading. Then purchasing is mainly encouraging the purchasing of green products. And green payment schemes, for instance, are something like when you buy something from a bank card or a debit card or a credit card, they say that 0.5% of this will go for a purpose like this. And that purpose can be for planting trees or some social benefit or environmental programs. So those are the green payment schemes. And again, by imposing the economic tools to reduce consumption will also affect the biogas systems. And also in increasing the awareness and providing information, education programs, publicity and marketing, information and communication technologies where information is available. We also can use social media, providing training programs for the employees, and communicating with the retailers, particularly when it comes to the packaging aspects, unnecessary packaging and advertising and branding, and then corporate reporting when it comes to integrated reporting or green reporting, where Sri Lanka also practices, or CSR reporting. And in fact, the Colombo Stock Exchange has guidelines given on ESGs, that is environment, social and governance reporting. So all those can help sustainable consumption as well. And we can come up with the labels with product information certification for the standards. But as you know, we are quite familiar with them as Sustainable SCP members. And when it comes to behaviors, the celebrities can endorse good behaviors, and we can encourage pledges and commitments by the individuals themselves that sort of motivate them to commit for themselves that they will be sustainable consumers. Then peer rating, peer-to-peer, shoulder-to-shoulder rating, word of mouth, then having some sort of benchmark so that we can make comparative evaluations between two products, two service providers, for instance, and then participation of communities in political decision making, influencing, advocating the decision makers, and nudgers is something like the people deciding for themselves that they will have best practices. So all these can reduce consumption, which also has direct impact on the biogas systems. Of course, sustainable consumption to be satisfied, people should have better awareness. So the consumers should be persuaded to follow sustainable consumption, and sustainable consumption products and services should be accessible and available. They should also be attractive. The people should feel it's a pleasure, it's a pleasant and a comfortable thing for them to consume them. They should also be affordable, it's not a luxury. And then whatever it is, the commodities, the services should be adequate. We should have enough to meet our needs, not necessarily the wants, but at least the needs. And then what has Sri Lanka done? And where are we? We developed the National Policy on Sustainable Consumption and Production in Sri Lanka in 2018. I'm not very sure it is gazetted. We can check. Chandima may know. And as far as the policy statements are concerned, it goes with quality of life, decoupling the economic growth from environmental degradation, emphasizes on life cycle thinking in the whole cycle, and particularly guarding against the rebound effect. The benefits, the short-term benefits, or the benefits, rather than enjoying for the short term, the people can really be motivated to consume more and more. So we have to guard against that. Of course, we have overarching policies and goals in Sri Lanka, policy goals in Sri Lanka, efficient use of natural resources, then reducing the food waste, then thinking about the whole life, sort of the supply chain, post-harvest, production, whatever, particularly when it comes to the food losses, from farm to the plate. Then prevent the waste generation. If we cannot prevent, at least follow the 3 Rs. Then encouraging the companies to adopt sustainable practices and integrating sustainability information into their reporting. Maybe their sustainable reporting, integrated reporting, etc. We wanted to go for public procurements as per the national policies, but unfortunately, the Public Procurement Commission was dissolved in Sri Lanka at a time when they had actually developed the public procurement guides and manuals. And in chapter 16, we can remember it was on green procurements. But now the commission is dissolved. And these also talk about good awareness and sustainable development and encouraging people to adopt lifestyle in harmony with the nature. Of course, science and technology capacity enhancement. We have National Science Foundation, we have Nerd Center, we have universities. So science and technology capacity is very vital. And then, of course, reducing the unnecessary subsidies, for instance, for fossil fuels, which encourage the wasteful consumption. And then the policy also has the thrust themes on environment, economic aspects, and enabling policies and strategies. Of course, when it comes to the implementation, our national policy also talked about monitoring and evaluation, planning, and governance aspects. But where are we? Are we implementing the national policy? Or actually, where are we when it comes to the national policy? We had the policy, but where are we? And finally, what are we thinking about the future? As the SCP Forum, we strongly recommend, we strongly advocate choice editing. The choices of the people, choices of the marketeers, choices of the business, choices of the government, particularly the people, editing their choice to make them sustainable. We also encourage sustainable lifestyles of the people, moderate lifestyle. Of course, sustainable consumption will reduce the inputs for biogas systems. Sustainable consumption will reduce the demand for energy from biogas, because if we consume less, energy is demanded less. Sustainable consumption will increase the demand for organic agricultural inputs, will increase the waste management technologies. So biogas technology can, on the other hand, be demanded more. And resource efficiency will lead to better technologies. And households, we predict that household and industrial biogas systems in Sri Lanka will reduce. Number of household and institutional systems will, the demand for them will be reduced, and industrial and power generation demand from biogas systems would increase. So finally, as SCP Forum, our dream is to see a transition beyond a consumerism society. So with that, I would like to end, and extremely sorry for taking 1 minute more than the allotted time. Chandima or Ajit, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Namiz, for the wonderful presentation. So accepting our invitation to come up with, to contribute to this series of webinars. As the SCP Forum, I think it is much related, a very hot topic we have selected. So as the topic says, that the dilemma of this biogas system, I think that word itself explains the context of this this topic, and it's very, very interesting one, because we know all the professionals joined with this forum. This subject has a lot of concerns. Okay, many initiatives are being placed. Many technology interventions are thought of. So we have to go a big far. We have to move forward in terms of many attributes when it comes to the biogas system. So you have given us a very good the basic, the technical know-how to which areas we can link these concepts in terms of the sustainable issues we are looking at. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Namiz, for your wonderful presentation. You have properly aligned to the allocated time slot, and it is a very efficient presentation again. So with that remark, I cordially invite the our professionals join with us. If you have any concerns now, we kindly invite you to share your thoughts, and Mr. Namiz would prepare to answer your concerns. Over to the forum is now ready for your questions.
At the same time, while we can have questions, we also can go for some sort of a discussion pertaining to how we can improve sustainable consumption. Of course, not only from the biogas systems perspective, but we see that 2018, the policy was released. 2019, it had been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers as per Chandima. And Mr. Senanaik also has confirmed that we should go for the gazette according to the procedure that have been developed. National policies are also gazetted. For instance, energy policy is gazetted in 2019 August. So what I suggest is we can think of biogas. Wherever biogas is concerned, I can respond, but I know that a few of you in the audience also are competent in the biogas systems. But I think as SCP forum, we also can think as to how we can promote sustainable consumption. Our dream, we mainly talk a lot about production aspects, but consumption aspects we implement and discuss a little. So I suggest, it's only a suggestion from my side.
Namiz, thank you very much. I must apologize profusely for being late in joining.
It's okay, sir.
Yeah, I was on a very, very interesting discussion on the phone, so I didn't realize the time passing. Something very much related. Now, you have covered a wide spectrum of ideas, which are very, very essential. But what is underlying all that one is, we look to the government and leadership and all that to drive this through policies and various things like that. But unfortunately, when it comes to Sri Lanka, they don't mean anything. We have so many policies. Now, you just mentioned the energy policy 2019. Even the CB people don't know about the existence of that. You see, so I don't believe that our future lies in through that route as far as the Sri Lankan this thing is concerned. Therefore, the one reason I joined the SCP, I think that change can come from not from top to bottom, but bottom upwards. There are very, very what shall I say, great barriers. For instance, the main question is consumerism. Yeah, you open the papers, you look at the TV or whatever it is, the drive is entirely in the opposite direction, because that's driven by the people who sell or make. They want people to consume. So that is a problem we have to face. So we'll have to accept that one, and we must see that how does that kind of pressure can be alleviated by the actual consumers themselves. In a way, the COVID and the present situation that we are facing has something of a silver lining. With vegetable prices going so high, how many vegetables do you need for a meal? And how much of it can you produce yourself sustainably? Now, that is where this biogas system is of very much relevance. I think you are an expert on that one. But your last slide, I have a little different idea. You believe that the domestic biogas demand will go down if you improve our consumerism, improve our consumption patterns, therefore, and we are save more of our, reduce our usage, therefore it will go down. Yes, that is true, no question about it. But then that is because we are looking at biogas generation only through waste. But biogas itself has a great advantage of a clean fuel, usable in your kitchen for your this thing, if you can generate more of it. But how do you generate if you don't have enough waste? Now, I am pursuing a, what shall I say, a trial or experiment or something like that, well, where we can create an input not necessarily coming from waste. As usual, I go back to Girisedia. You know, Moratuwa University did a number of trials to generate biogas using Girisedia leaves. I think they were fairly successful. Now I'm trying that one at the small scale for domestic biogas units. The two important aspects come from it. One is because it will give you the gas for your cooking entirety. Plus, the biogas unit will generate a superb fertilizer. That will also make sure that you can grow your vegetables or whatever it is very easily. Now, this is proven already. I don't know, you all must know my good friend Sunil Karnavardhan of the Nerd. You should visit him. I'll share some pictures of it. No, so I want your idea about this, Namiz. You see, shouldn't be looking at that part. Looking at biogas, the value of biogas, not entirely dependent on waste itself. Can we come up with other inputs, sustainable inputs, which will still give you the biogas and also plus the added benefit of the fertilizer? Thank you.
Now, sir, what I said was the demand from household and institutions will drop. The next line says industrial and power generation will increase.
Correct.
Now,
But
one aspect is when it comes to the households, the waste generated, organic waste generated from households are very minimal. The family size is really getting small. Now, Sri Lanka's family size has become 3 point odd now. It has dropped even from 4.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, the garden sizes, home garden sizes, and the people moving on to the sort of high-rise buildings, etc., reduces the amount of organic waste that is available. Now, from a technical perspective, a kilogram of organic waste can produce something like 40 to 110 liters of biogas. And Sunil's one is in Jayala, it's in the range of 110. And if we take for instance, a cow dung one, they will produce something like 40 to 50 liters a day. So, liters a day per kg. And then 1 cubic meter of biogas is equivalent to something like half a kilogram of LPG when it comes to the energy values. So in order to meet the energy requirements, at least the cooking energy requirements of the households, the amount of waste they generated at households are inadequate.
Quite right.
And that is why we say even at the institutional level is the same. But industrial and power generation, in fact, I forgot to mention separately about farm type ones, whether it is a dairy farm or agricultural farms. Farm scales, industrial and power generation can increase. That is what is being predicted, although the household small scale ones will reduce. Even Biogas Association doesn't concentrate on household biogas systems now.
No, I know. You are quite right, because that's the only way we have been going. We were saying that biogas generation is through the waste, and you don't produce enough waste. Absolutely no argument about that. But if you are looking at it only from the listing of, you see, making sure the waste is used in a productive manner, that situation is true. But I'm looking at the other way, the value of biogas. Instead of you are having to buy a LPG cylinder, now, like you might said, if you can produce 1 cubic meter per day, you are using your gas requirement met. Now, what is the amount of input you need? Now, where can that come from? If we can come from another sustainable source, not necessarily waste, there are no reason why it should decline. Now, that is what I am attempting to do. You see, Sunil's one also is the same situation, because his wife brings the waste from the school kitchen also to make sure he gets enough. That's not sustainable thing. You see, we don't want to be doing that. But the way I'm looking at is ingredient made like we used to buy Timco in the supermarket. I like to be able to buy dried Girisedia leaves in the supermarket and go and put in a packet every day, if I can get the system to work. So that way, if you are succeeding in that one, you can reverse your thinking about it. But I fully agree with the industrial and power generation. Joe is pushing very hard on that one, and that must go. And that for them also, they must look for more and more other different things. And farms is one thing. And one other thing we are not looked at all is municipal sewerage systems. You see, that should be, instead of pumping raw sewage into the sea, we should be passing it through a biogas generator. You see, those are very definitely this thing. But give it some thought to what I said. We are going through some technical problems, but if I succeed, I think it will be a game changer.
Yeah, yes and both, sir, because one thing is purpose grown, particularly if we talk about purpose grown system, and even at the moment, the LPG price and the convenience we have with the cylinders, because biogas is very difficult to cylinderize. And if at all we have to send through pipes, if we send through pipes, of course, we should have high density of people, then only we can go for piping. Of course, we can easily get the pipe standards for piping. We can develop very easily because they are available. And even in certain areas, we have seen, not in Sri Lanka, but in certain areas, we have seen that these have been injected into the gas grids as well by uplifting their quality. So as Sunil's case, as you can see, they have to depend on external sources, but we also hear about the purpose grown crops for biogas systems as well for power generation, where the tariffs are quite attractive. So in Sri Lanka at the moment, when it goes for a competitive feed-in tariffs, then of course I doubt how much this technology, because we don't have technology specific tariffs at the moment, so I don't know which to which extent will be successful. But as you say, sir, yes, definitely we should have convenience for the consumers, even for them to use the biogas system. Which was available in the market in Sri Lanka, which is 500 liters of capacity, was fairly okay for certain houses where they had adequate amount of waste. Because for a house, they need at least about 10 kilograms of waste per day in order to get adequate gas.
Yeah.
Namiz, can you hear me? Namiz?
Yes, Mr. Naika.
Okay, thank you very much for making this very nice presentation. It's very informative, very attractive as usual. Now, since it is, and also you have nicely blended the biogas system with the sustainable consumption side of it. This is a suggestion, maybe you could also include one slide when you talk about the biogas. I'm sure the Biogas Association must be having this information with them. Maybe good to have some statistics, letting us know how many units we have installed in this country. I know you cannot have precise the information, but roughly how many units we have installed, at what the total capacity, cumulative capacity like, and what is the percentage in use right now. I don't know whether this information is available, but I think if we can have this information, is very useful. The second, this is a suggestion, and also since we are running out of time, I think we are almost now exhausted 1 hour. Now you have a questions toward the end of the presentation. Now we have the SCP policy, and how do we operationalize this SCP policy? You have asked a question. Now, in fact, now we had this discussion with the Minister of Environment. Chandima would also could add to this. Actually, now what we wanted to have the implementation plan for the policy, but now the ministry feels that since a national environmental action plan is developed, it actually it has a lot of activities to promote SCP. So they don't now see the need to have a separate implementation plan for SCP, but they rely on the need. But the document is there, but again, we know the difficulties in getting this implemented, by various organizations. So that is the the position of the Ministry of Environment. Maybe Chandima could add to it. So once again, thank you very much, Namiz, taking your time in preparing this presentation and letting us know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Naik. In fact, with regard to the statistics, of course, we have some data as at 2014. There was not really NAMA, even before NAMA, there was a study carried out in Sri Lanka where the Sri Lanka's number of biogas systems was estimated to be somewhere around 7,000 at that time, as at 2014. This publication came out in 2015. And with regard to the success rate, historically, way back in 1998, the success rate was 36%. In the year 2003, it has gone up to 76%. And with the NAMA project, I think it was in 2016 or 17, it had gone to about 90% as at that time from the small surveys carried out. As far as the cumulative capacity is concerned, of course, we don't have any statistic at the moment. But Biogas Association was thinking of carrying out another national survey to understand these figures, because all those are at least 5 years old now. And when it comes to the need, in fact, need, of course, I cannot remember in detail. Of course, this was available for public comments. And then need generally would think of the environmental aspects and sustainable production aspects, but I still doubt whether it touches adequately of the sustainable consumption aspects, because handling sustainable consumption is not really technology. We talk to the heart of the people, we talk to the minds of the people, we think about the behavioral aspects, the attitudinal aspects. So it's a little different. I think consumption aspect, we have to still think within the need framework or outside the need framework. But I'm illiterate, I should admit, in order to make a conclusive sort of, conclusive statement on that. And anyway, thanks very much, Mr. Naik. I'll take that suggestions into consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Namiz. I think now we have taken the allocated time slot. So once again, thank you very much. I think there seems to be no other questions also. Thank you for contributing for the questions also, participating our members in the discussion. And thank you very much for all the members who have joined with us. This is a kind of a short notice, the subject on this biogas, but anyway, you have come forward to join us and to witness this very important the presentation. So we shall meet with another kind of a presentation in 1 month time. So until such time, very good day to you and very good night for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for the opportunity as well. Thanks.
Good night to everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.